Imagine this. You're standing on a frozen shoreline in the middle of winter. The wind howls like a jet engine, snow slices sideways through the air, and the temperature sits at a bone-crushing minus 30 degrees Celsius. Right in front of you, dozens of workers are lifting steel beams, welding thick cables, and guiding huge machines, all while their breath turns to ice in the air. Most of us couldn't survive an hour in these conditions, but these teams worked through it for months. Why? To build something the world said was impossible. A colossal bridge across the Arctic Ocean. But this isn't just any bridge. It's the Haragrand Bridge, a 500-meter-long engineering masterpiece built in one of the most extreme environments on the planet. Blizzards, sea ice, gale-force winds, and yet a crew of engineers managed to beat all odds. So here's the real question. What does it take to build a bridge in a place nature itself rejects? And even more surprising, how did China, not a European country, end up being the one to do it? In Norway, a country famous for its engineering talent and long history with infrastructure. This is the story of one of the toughest construction projects ever attempted. A story of innovation, global competition, and human grit. And it begins with a problem that's plagued Norway for decades. To understand why the Haragrand Bridge was even needed, you have to look at Norway's geography. It's stunning. Endless fjords slicing between steep mountain walls, icy blue waters stretching for miles, and towns scattered across this rugged, snow-covered land, but that beauty has a cost. In northern Norway, especially near the Arctic Circle, even short trips can turn into a nightmare. Roads twist around deep fjords and sharp cliffs. Tunnels help, but only so much. Landslides are common. Black ice and blizzards make winter travel dangerous, sometimes impossible. One of the worst spots? The Arfort Fjord. This narrow strip of water forced drivers into an exhausting 11-mile detour over rough, icy terrain just to reach the other side. For locals, that meant hours added to daily commutes. For businesses, it caused delays and spiked shipping costs. And for ambulances or fire trucks, it could mean the difference between life and death. The idea of fixing the route had been tossed around for years, but nothing worked. Ferries were too slow. Tunnels under the seabed, too risky. A bridge seemed like the only real solution, but even that felt like science fiction. Until finally, Norway made a bold call. Build the Haragrand Bridge, right across the fjord facing the brutal Arctic winds and finally connecting isolated communities. But choosing to build the bridge was just the first step. Next came the bigger question. Who on earth could actually build it? When Norway announced it was taking bids for the Haragrand Bridge, the world took notice. This wasn't just another infrastructure project. This was a test of engineering at the edge of human capability. Arctic weather, blistering winds, unstable geology. Whoever won the contract would be building one of the most difficult bridges on Earth. Naturally, the top names in engineering came forward. Big firms from Germany, France, and across Scandinavia, companies with years of experience working in extreme cold, all submitted detailed proposals. They were the favorites. Then came the surprise. A Chinese firm, China Railway Major Bridge Engineering Group, entered the competition. To many Western experts, this seemed bizarre. Sure, China had the funding and manpower, but building a delicate suspension bridge in the Arctic, in Norway no less, was unknown territory. Most assumed it was just a headline grab. Some thought the Chinese offer wouldn't even make it past the first round. But when Norwegian officials looked closer, they saw something different. China had already built some of the world's biggest and most challenging bridges. Take the Shihuman Bridge, China's second-longest suspension bridge, built over rough sea waters, or the massive Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, stretching across the ocean for over 34 miles. These weren't just huge. They were built with precision, delivered on time, and often came in under budget. Quietly, China had become a global powerhouse in bridge construction. And as the extreme demands of the Haragrand project scared off company after company, only the Chinese bid stayed in play. Not only was it more affordable, it was also the most advanced technically. Against all expectations, China won the contract, but that was just the start. Now, they had to prove they could build a bridge that could survive whatever the Arctic threw at it. Winning the bid was one thing. Building in the Arctic was something else entirely. Imagine walking onto the future site of the Haragrand Bridge. The cold slices through your clothes. Temperatures regularly drop below minus 30 degrees Celsius. Snow doesn't fall gently. It slams sideways in 100 kilometers per h winds and keeps going for weeks. This wasn't a construction zone. It was a battlefield between man and nature. Every part of the job was made harder by the environment. Even concrete, one of the most basic materials, became unpredictable. If it froze before setting, you risked cracks, weak spots, or total failure. Steel? It shrinks in the cold, turns brittle, and becomes harder to weld. Tools froze. Hands went numb. Heavy machinery slowed to a crawl, or stopped working entirely. And if that wasn't enough, the site sat right in a corridor of wild, unpredictable storms. A single one could shut the whole operation down. Then there was the wind. Suspension bridges are extremely sensitive to vortex-induced vibrations. That's when swirling winds cause cables to sway violently, which can tear a bridge apart if not controlled. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge in the U.S. It twisted like a ribbon in strong winds and collapsed in 1940. Engineers still study it today as a warning. Underestimate nature, and it will win. So when experts looked at the Howls Bridge project, they were nervous. Some even called it a gamble with gravity. They feared it could suffer the same fate. But the Chinese engineers didn't flinch. Instead of backing down, they went back to the drawing board, determined to design not just a bridge that could survive the Arctic, but thrive in it. What they came up with next changed everything. China didn't just build a bridge. They reimagined how to build one for extreme environments. First, they created a custom cold weather playbook tailored to the Howls site. Every material had to be certified for sub-zero temperatures. Every step, from pouring concrete to stretching cables, had to be tested under Arctic conditions. This wasn't routine construction. It was precision engineering on an entirely new level. One of the biggest breakthroughs came from a partnership with Southwest Jiao Tong University, experts in bridge aerodynamics. Together, they ran wind tunnel tests to simulate the brutal Arctic winds. Their solution? A specially designed aerodynamic box girder, shaped like a flattened oval. Smooth, sleek, and built to cut through wind like a racing yacht's hull. This design significantly reduced dangerous vibrations and boosted stability. They also used an advanced technique called slipform construction, where towers are poured continuously using moving molds. It helped them build fast and evenly, even in freezing weather. Instead of hanging individual cable strands in dangerous winds, they lifted pre-assembled cable sections into place with millimeter-level precision. It saved time, improved safety, and made the entire process more efficient. By combining speed, safety, and science, the team turned what many saw as an impossible mission into a repeatable model. But their toughest challenge was still ahead, building through months of total darkness. Imagine working 12-hour shifts and never seeing the sun. That's the polar night. Nearly 2 months of darkness, biting cold, and violent snowstorms. Yet construction didn't stop. How? It started with mindset. Chinese engineers had worked in tough environments before, from the heights of Tibet to icy offshore platforms. But this was another level. So they partnered with local Norwegian workers who understood the land. The Norwegians knew how the wind behaved when ice would form and how darkness could mess with your head. Together, the two teams formed a powerful alliance. Chinese precision met Norwegian resilience. They adjusted work shifts to match natural energy cycles and used industrial floodlights to mimic daylight. Still, some tasks pushed human limits. Take the main suspension cables. These had to be threaded across towers hundreds of meters apart. It's hard in daylight. In darkness, with ice and wind, it was like threading a needle in a storm. Blindfolded. Even the towers weren't simple. Their tapered, twisting shapes meant each level was slightly different. Building them in total darkness required laser-guided alignment, double checks, and perfect coordination. It wasn't just engineering. It was a test of discipline, teamwork, and raw endurance. Every frozen bolt, every stretch of cable brought them closer to what once seemed impossible. And finally, after over 3 years of battling nature, the Howls Bridge was ready. In 2019, the Howls Bridge officially opened, and the world noticed. The media called it a modern marvel. BBC named it one of the most ambitious cold climate infrastructure projects ever. It received global awards for engineering innovation, resilience, and international teamwork. The specs? Just as jaw-dropping as the story. A main span of 1,533 meters, nearly a mile, stretches over Arctic waters. Over 12,000 tons of steel and concrete, suspended by 40 precision-balanced cable strands, designed to resist wind, ice, and movement. But beyond the numbers, This bridge reconnected a region once isolated by harsh geography. Gone is the dangerous 11-kilometer detour around the Arfjord. Now, travel is faster, safer, and more reliable, even in winter. Emergency services can reach remote towns. Tourism has grown, and locals no longer fear being stranded by landslides or blizzards. And for China, this bridge marked a new kind of diplomacy, not with speeches or trade deals, but with steel, concrete, and determination. While many Western firms said it couldn't be done, China went ahead and did it. The Heroisund Bridge became more than just a structure. It became a symbol of what humanity can achieve when innovation meets determination, when countries collaborate instead of compete, and when nature's challenges become fuel for breakthroughs. So next time someone says it can't be done, remember this bridge and the hands that refuse to quit. If you enjoyed this story of engineering against the odds, give us a like. Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe. We've got more epic stories of human ingenuity coming soon.